Why the war on drugs is a huge failure. Kurz's amazing channel. I've reacted to a lot of their videos in the past. So yeah, let's check this one out and see what this is about.
Over 40 years ago, US President Richard Nixon declared drug abuse public enemy #1.
Right.
Starting an unprecedented global campaign, the war on drugs. Today, the numbers are in. The war on drugs is a huge failure with devastating unintended consequences. It led to mass incarceration in the US, to corruption, political destabilization and violence in Latin America, Asia and Africa, to systemic human rights abuses across the world.
Yeah, we've seen all the documentaries, we've seen all the movies, we've seen all the TV shows. The drug war, the drug world is mad. It's fucking mad.
It negatively affected the lives of millions of people. All of this while we waste billions of dollars every year only to create and fuel powerful drug cartels, while the goal of the war on drugs seems less achievable than ever. A world without drugs. How could this happen?
But we will never get to a stage where you will have a world without drugs. Like, how is that even possible?
The core strategy of the war on drugs is no drugs, no problems. So almost all of the efforts in the last few decades have been focused on eradicating the supply of drugs and incarcerating drug traffickers. But this ignores the most fundamental of market forces, supply and demand. If you reduce the supply of anything without reducing the demand first, its price goes up. This might lower sales for many products, but not for drugs. The drugs market is not price sensitive. Drugs will be consumed no matter what they cost. So the effect is to encourage production of more drugs and recruitment of more traffickers, which increases availability. This is also known as the balloon effect. Even if drug production or a major supply route is destroyed, the supply for the end user is not reduced.
Yeah.
A perfect example of this is crystal meth. The US government tried to stop its production by strictly regulating the sale of chemicals used to manufacture the drug. This forced big meth producers out of business, but the unintended consequences were that thousands of small-scale operations started all over the country, mostly in small towns and rural communities, using chemicals that weren't regulated. In response to this, some US states wanted to reduce the supply of homegrown meth by regulating even more chemicals, which reduced small-scale meth production drastically. But the supply of meth still stayed the same. Mexican drug cartels immediately took over and opened big production operations. Their meth was even better than it was before, and they had loads of experience in smuggling. So all these efforts made meth production more professional, the drug more potent, while supply wasn't reduced at all. You can't win this war on the supply side.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you've seen all the videos, and like even watching this is, no matter what you're gonna do, there's gonna be a, someone else is gonna do something, right? You're gonna stop that, someone else is gonna do that. You're gonna stop that, someone else is gonna do something else, and it's just gonna go on and go on, go on, go on, go on, because there's just way too much money in the drug world. There's way too much money.
Not only are drugs widely available, demand unbroken, and some drugs purer than in the past, with a budget of around $30 billion, the US Drug Enforcement Agency has an efficiency rate of less than 1% when it comes to stopping the flow of drugs into the US and inside the US. For many minors around the world, it's as easy to get illegal drugs as alcohol.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop here. Prohibition may prevent a certain amount of people from taking drugs, but in the process, it causes huge damage to society as a whole. Many of the problems we associate with drug use are actually caused by the war against them. For example, prohibition makes drugs stronger. The more potent drugs you can store in as little space as possible, the more profit you'll make. It was the same during alcohol prohibition, which led to an increased consumption of strong liquor over beer. The prohibition of drugs also led to more violence and murders around the world. Gangs and cartels have no access to the legal system to settle disputes, so they use violence.
True.
This led to an ever-increasing spiral of brutality.
But like, the thing is, I know this video is about the drug war is a massive failure, right? But the alternative is like allowing it, and the government produces it, because then the crime will stop and all that. There'll be no crime business. You know what I mean? Because they can't compete with legal businesses. They can't. But that's just not gonna work. That's just never gonna happen. You can't. That's just never gonna fucking happen, bro.
According to some estimates, the homicide rate in the US is 25 to 75% higher because of the war on drugs. And in Mexico, a country on the front line, an estimated 164,000 have been murdered between 2007
Holy
and
shit.
2014. More people than in the war zones of Afghanistan and Iraq in the same period combined.
Do you reckon it'll be better if we, like, what we do with tobacco, we do with drugs? So the big companies, they make drugs in the proper way, right? They can actually monetize what's going in it, and we're like, you know, they can monitor what's going in it and stuff. And then on the packaging, they can just like have tobacco kills, drug kills, right? This will lower the crime rate, because what's the point of these guys doing all the crime stuff and like going at war with each other and killing each other when they're competing with legitimate businesses? When the legitimate businesses will be easier to get, you know, less risky and probably less pricey, right? I don't know, but it's just mad. Like, drugs are that bad for you, bro. I don't see how they can ever do that, and I don't see how they can ever stop it. Like, it's just, it's a fucked situation.
Drugs might do the most damage to society is the incarceration of non-violent drug offenders. For example, the United States, one of the driving forces of the war on drugs, has 5% of the world's total population, but 25% of the world's prison population.
Holy
largely
shit.
due to the harsh punishments and mandatory minimums. Minorities suffer because of this especially. African Americans make up 40% of all US prison inmates. And while white kids are more likely to abuse drugs, black kids are 10 times more likely to get arrested for drug offenses. Okay, but is there actually something different we could do? Is there a way out of this mess? In the 1980s, Switzerland experienced a public health crisis related to heroin use. HIV rates skyrocketed and street crime became a problem. Swiss authorities tried a new strategy: harm reduction. They opened free heroin maintenance centers where addicts would be treated and stabilized. Here, people would be given free heroin of high quality, they would get clean needles, and have access to safe injection rooms,
That's actually
showers,
really smart.
beds, and medical supervision. Social workers helped them find housing and deal with other problems in their lives.
Wow.
The results were a sharp drop in drug-related crime, and 2/3 of the people in the centers got regular jobs because now they could focus on getting better instead of financing their addiction.
Oh,
Today,
shit.
over 70% of all heroin addicts in Switzerland receive treatment. HIV infections have dropped drastically. Deaths from heroin overdoses have dropped by 50%. And drug-related street sex work and crime has been reduced enormously.
That's actually a really smart and really good way to like deal with the situation.
So there are methods that are not only way cheaper, but also actually work instead of creating more problems. Drug prohibition led to a system that bulldozes human rights, costs vast sums of money, and creates a lot of human misery.
Yeah.
All in pursuit of an unobtainable goal. After 40 years of fighting, it's time to finally end the war on drugs and move on to something better.
Yeah, that's actually really good.
viewer don't-
But really interesting video, really good video. A massive topic that, yeah. There's got to be other ways to go about it. That way in Switzerland is actually a really good way. There's still going to be a massive problem out there as well. But really good video. Really enjoyed that one. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it too. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.